In the last episode, we restored this room. We installed decorative French panels, painted the walls with a very unusual paint, and discovered that under a floor covered with decades of dirt, there was an almost perfect pine floor hiding underneath. That's why we sanded it and covered it with a good layer of varnish. But I could not return the sanding machine without restoring the floor in the hall too. But there was one problem. The staircase was in the way. That's why my brother and I started taking it apart. And even though it was extremely heavy, somehow we managed to dismantle it and carry it into another room. So we swept the floor and finally started sanding, and the first passes already started changing everything, layer by layer. The floor started looking fresher and fresher again. The old dirt was slowly disappearing, and honestly, it was so satisfying to watch the hall slowly come back to life. Under the machine, every movement revealed more clean wood, like the castle was hiding another secret under all that dust. But in the last episode, I found some incredible royal curtains, but they were dirty. That's why I threw them into the washing machine and continued sanding the floor. But then I remembered that the lower part of the corridor also needed at least a little bit of sanding. But to do that, we had to clear it first. That's why we moved the chipboard sheets, removed all the things, and I also peeled off the protective film. And finally, my brother and I started making magic again. And huge thanks to every single person who sends donations and comments on the videos. It really helps me keep posting episodes regularly and continue restoring this castle. By that time, the curtains I had hung up to dry were completely dry. That's why I collected them and put them aside. But the upper corridor still needed attention, so I continued bringing it into the best condition possible, going over it again and again, and watching how, with every pass, more and more dirt disappeared. But the sanding machine started overheating. That's why I decided to let it rest for a while. So I brought the baseboards into the room and started installing them, measuring, cutting, applying glue, installing, and the first baseboard was ready. Then the second one too. But cutting everything with a handsaw was taking too long. That's why I found an electric jigsaw. And after a few small adjustments, I cut the next board and continued installing the baseboards. And even though it looks fast on video, installing all the baseboards with all the cutting took me a lot of time. Every corner had to be measured, cut, checked, adjusted, and glued into place. But with every new piece, the room started looking less like a construction zone and more like a real castle bedroom. And honestly, these small details are exactly what make the whole room feel finished. But the room immediately started feeling much cozier, but the lower corridor still needed attention. That's why I sanded it as well as I could with the time I had. This is how it looked before, and this is how it looked after sanding. But the upper corridor turned out almost perfect. This is how it looked before, and this is how it looked after. And honestly, I was insanely happy with the result.